You know what I'm saying? So you can have a little discipline. Well, ladies and gentlemen, first we just want to say welcome. Thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight. And before we get started, I think it's appropriate that we to acknowledge that. Yeah.
All right.
And then if you don't mind, I mean, I think, according to our tradition, I just like to offer a prayer, man.
Yes, amen.
For this brother's family, man, and for the community. So those of you who feel so led to join, please do. If not, just respect our desire and give us a second. So, Dad, we just want to, first of all, say thanks for another day, and just want to lift up this man in the community. Not sure even what his real name is, but that doesn't matter to you, you know. And I just pray, God, for wisdom and for strength. I pray for the leaders that are going to have to lead through this tragedy in Los Angeles.
Lord. Yes, Lord.
For leaders all over the country that are going to have these conversations. And I just want to ask for all the families that have been victims of this type of trauma in our community for a long time, as they remember and as they memorialize their children again after witnessing what has happened here. And so I just pray that you would help us in our small way to be able to reach the community the best way that we can, and talk about reconciliation and what all of that really looks like, and help us to discuss the issues that we're going to discuss today, and then just help us to be vessels and to be witnesses, and most of all, just comfort the city of Los Angeles, because you know how we feel about people that we admire a lot, and he was a worldwide figure and had done a lot of work in the community. So I just pray that you just continue to have your hand in all of these situations and in all the affairs of the world. We don't need to ask you to put your hand in them, because they're already there. So we just want to say thank you for it.
Thank you, Father.
We just appreciate you, and we love you a lot in Jesus' name. Amen.
I have his real name.
Okay.
If I'm pronouncing it right?
Yeah.
Ermias Askedon.
Ermias Ashkedon.
Yeah. Ashkedon.
So he was Eritrean.
Yeah.
He was from Eritrea.
Well, he was born in L.A., but his father was Eritrean. His mom was African American, Black American.
Eritrean.
So he's born in L.A. though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad. Well, I mean, how do you there's not. So, if we could, I decided today when I came home, I'm gonna put this shirt on. I know it's really loud. The shirt is extremely loud, but it's second call. Me and Councilmember Montgomery and Steve rode up to L.A. on Thursday night.
Oh, okay.
To visit a program that takes formerly incarcerated men and women, and then they went around the room, and there's some folks in there, brother, 30 years, 25, 5, 2, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they teach these folks life skills to be able to deal with how to be at work. Mm-hmm. And when I heard about what happened in Los Angeles, I figured, man, this is a good kind of a good I don't even want to say a segue, but just something I felt like it made sense for me to wear it, because a lot of what we see in our communities, a lot of what happens is a result of like long-standing traumas and stuff that's not being dealt with. And and so they do that at Second Call. So we're going to bring that here to join with homework. Okay. Because what's the point? And just like the brother that is running the program in Los Angeles, what's the point in sending a bunch of traumatized individuals to job sites so that when they get upset, they smack somebody and it turns all bad or whatever? So we figured we'd add that component, because the tagline to homework is when a person comes home, they need to work. But sometimes if you want to work, you're going to have to do some homework. So,
right.
So part of the homework is looking and dealing with yourself. So shout out to Los Angeles, Nipsey Hussle, the whole community of LA, Big John from Second Call, and all the brothers that are working with. A lot of cats up there getting trades too, man. They working in the trades. Cats is coming out of prison after doing 30 years and getting jobs as electricians.
And I heard Caltran is, I was just talking to someone today that's in prison. And they got visit from some politicians from Bell, Senator Bell, and another senator out of L.A. or someone out of L.A. And they were telling them that, I think it's Caltrans, that when guys get out of prison, they're going to have a entrepreneur apprentice program for them. Okay. And could pay up to $90,000 a year.
I'll tell you right now, ooh, man, I'll tell you, and there's a lot of those things happening slowly. And I was telling a friend of mine, as a Christian, and the first thing I actually wanted to discuss tonight or whatever was a response to Tasha's comment about we're all God's children. But my point is that I believe that it's going to take time for us to deal with a lot of the issues and that's happening. And there's a lot of things that people are going to have to accept that come along with a lot of these changes that you might not naturally want to stuff that you might be against that are going to be. Prison reform is built around a whole lot of other stuff, right? So you ain't going to just get prison reform. You're going to get a whole lot of other stuff too. So, but one of the things is prison reform. They got a few programs that are really trying to help. And so my thing is, and I remember when the 3 strikes law got kicked down, and I was going into Donovan quite a bit. And one of the things I always used to tell the brothers is, man, don't be so happy about the fact that you coming home. You better get ready. Yeah. That's what you better do. You better get ready. And so with all the jobs and all the stuff, man, we need to have programs that are dealing with all the trauma and all the stuff that's happening. Churches need to start stepping up and start getting involved and start having these conversations. And we can't have the same old, preaching the gospel is what we do. We are ministers of the gospel, ministers of reconciliation. But sometimes you have to begin with some of the other trauma and stuff that's happening. So thank God for that, man. Just real quick, I just wanted to revisit Tasha's comments. Sister Tasha, right before we got off last week, we were talking about getting along and how we all bring differences to the table, and the need for us to be able to create the space for us to work together alongside of our differences. And Sister Tasha said we're all God's children, and I felt like the way I answered it almost kind of was arrogant. Oh, okay. It was almost kind of arrogant, man, and it bugged me all week. And I didn't even have the heart to apologize to her. I talked to her a couple of times this week, and I didn't have the heart to, but I needed to, man. I felt so. I hate when I do stuff like that. But I guess what I actually should have said or wanted to say, I guess, or maybe was trying to say, I don't even know, was like seriously. I understand why we all feel that way, like we're all God's children, and I get that sentiment. But I guess what I should have said, I guess, was like we have differences in belief. Like as a Christian, I do not believe that everybody's God's children, right? That's important to make that distinction. Right. But what does that mean? Like, but that's where I think we have to learn as communities. Like we gonna have there's people that don't believe Jesus is the Son of God, and we need to be honest about those distinctions up front, right? Because
And that's why last week I said all roads don't lead to Jesus.
Yes,
and it's okay. We can be different. We can believe different.
But I think it's important to say that when we're making comments about what we believe and what truth is, right?
Exactly.
I don't have to water down what I believe. I ain't gonna do that to get along.
But you want to do it in love and understanding, and for people to know that, hey, look, I do this not condemning anyone, not thinking I'm better than anyone, but this is where I stand. This is what I believe.
100%. And somebody come in and go, I don't believe that. That's perfect. Cool. Have your children eaten tonight?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you don't
love you.
You don't believe what I believe, good, but do you have a job?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think that's important. And so I just wanted to publicly, I made the comment publicly, so I want to make the apology public. Sister Tasha, I don't know, we didn't really speak about it, and that's because I didn't have the courage to say anything to you about it.
I think she said she's going, I don't know if she signed in, but I know I heard her say something about she's going to a birthday party.
Okay.
Something's going on.
But maybe she'll see it later. Maybe somebody else will tell her. But I just wanted to say, like, we do believe things are different. And certain views that we talk about tonight, people are not going to agree with.
Right.
All we saying is, let's come to the table. Like, I don't want nobody to ever think we being sneaky about what we believe. You need to know exactly what we believe.
Put it up front. We put it up front.
100%. So with that being said, that's enough out of that one. And what I put in the notes is our different views matter, but we can still find common ground.
That's right.
So what is real leadership? When somebody asks you that question, what do you say? How do you answer that? How do you, and it's not a test or nothing, but I kind of wonder, like, in our community, like, what does that mean?
You know, have you ever heard the song "What You See, What You Get"? It's true love and what
Go on
you
and sing
looking
it.
for.
I heard you preaching.
What you see is what you get.
Hey!
That's what I said. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
We're leaders, man. What you talking about?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, at least with me, is that, you know, leaders, there's so many definitions of what a leader is.
Okay.
And one of the things that I always try to tell people, and that's why I when I'm in the media and different places, or people introducing me and they say community advocate, gang advocate, and I said, look, that's some of the work I do, but I'm not a community advocate. I'm not a community leader per se.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm a spiritual leader. I'm a spiritual leader. I'm a pastor, right? I'm a clergy. Okay. So it's spiritual on my side. And I think that's the ultimate leadership, is spiritual leadership. I think that, you know, leadership, there are at least some certain qualities that need to be there. Leadership is about trust, right?
Okay.
And I believe that you can't lead if people don't trust you.
Ooh.
And so you have to have trust. People have to have trust in you. Okay. You have to be able to create an environment of trust, where people trust you and want to follow you. And I like the way years ago I used a video one time of Colin Powell. Somebody asked him about leadership, and one of the things that he said is that, you know, he the example that he used was that his I think he said when he was in one of the schools going through training for military schools, they were boot camps, whatever it was. He was saying that the sergeant said, you know, he said, you know that you're a real leader when people want to follow you, even if it's just out of curiosity. But so leadership is about influence, right? Whatever your mission, your purpose, your goal is, leaders lead people onto that. Yeah. And so when I say I'm a spiritual leader, I'm trying to lead people onto God's agenda. I don't have a hidden agenda. There's nothing. My ultimate goal is to do God's will. That's what Martin Luther King said, right? He said, I just want to do God's will. Okay. You know, and so it's leading people onto God's agenda. It's about influence with people, having influence upon people. It's a spiritual leadership can operate anywhere, right? It can operate in the business world. It can operate in the community. It can operate, of course, in the church, because that's us and so on. So when you talk about spiritual leadership, it supersedes the general leadership or all the other type of leadership, at least from my perspective, when you look at it. And so that's why I see myself as a spiritual leader. You know, I'm that moral voice in the community, you know, speaking and crying out for God. You know, I kind of feel like Paul, when he said that, I have not hesitated. He told the elders of Ephesus, I have not hesitated to declare to you the whole counsel of God. You know, and God told Ezekiel, he said, look, son of man, I told you to warn the people. When I tell you to warn the people, forgive them warning from me, and you don't. He said their blood is going to be on your hands. You're going to be responsible for their life because you didn't warn them. He said, but if they be lost, they're going to be lost, of course. But if you do warn them and they don't take heed, you have delivered yourself. and that man's gonna be accountable for his own blood. His blood gonna be on his own head. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the way I see leadership. When you talk about leadership, now my thing is that when you look in the church and you look at the community, I think that, I know people probably get tired of hearing it, but I think that white supremacy has a lot of influence on the black church. I shouldn't say black church, but predominantly black churches where you have black leaders and most people are probably black and so on. Or leading in black communities. I think that white supremacy, has a hand in it, in a sense of when people talk about, just, focusing on the church and stay out of politics, stay out of this, let them come if they want to come and be saved. They just operate within the walls of the church. And they might have programs feeding the hungry, giving out clothes and things like that. But they're really not, everybody's doing that. That's really not, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people are doing that. That's really not leadership. Anybody can do that. First of all, a lot of money can give out food and give out clothing, things like that. But what difference are you making when it comes to God and leading people to a changed life? You know what I mean? That's ultimately what it's about. And of course, in this day and time, people don't want you preaching to them. People don't, the world has its way of viewing things, versus the way we see things in the church, right? Okay. So that's my spiel.
So, and definitely hear that. And so one of the things I was thinking about, the reason why I asked this question, like what is leadership? Because I think a lot of especially in the black community, I think we've taken our cue from a lot of pastors. I think people naturally in the black community look to the religious leaders for direction, right?
Where they used to be.
But I think there's still a sentiment where that actually happens. I think it may not be as obvious right now, but I think people are extremely disappointed when they see leaders in the church fail, right? Okay. I think because man, what are y'all doing, right? Yeah. But there's a difference though. Leadership doesn't mean you never fail. I think leadership is. Right. I don't know if this is true, but I think about the word etymology, the way a word is made up. I don't know if this is true or not, but it sounds like, so I could be wrong. But leadership is the continuous staying in front.
Amen.
Leadership means staying in front. But what does that mean, though? And I think, and the reason why I think have church leadership models affected our view on leadership. So think about the crabs in the barrel mentality, right? So I think about in the church, right, with the style of leadership that we have in church, where you got one person who's the head of the church, and that person is like El Jefe. What he says goes, and everybody works for him. And they say stuff like, "My sheep," you know what I mean, "My people," "My church," and they don't mean mine as far as I identify with it. They mean mine as far as you are my people. And right? And
that's the attitude.
And then there's a parking space right out front. You get the parking space, not you, but I mean the person who, right? And you're the one that gets to take the pictures with the mayor. You're the one that I invited the mayor to come speak at the church, and I've done all these things that put preachers kind of in a higher elevated status, right? And so what happens is we see those types of things, and the only way that you can get something in San Diego is if you either A, kiss the feet of the preacher who has the keys to the car, right? You either gotta, I agree with you, Pastor, and let me, you know what I mean? Like, let me, let me wipe the sweat off your brow. Let me just, I'm gonna sell out for you. Let me do all that, right? Because I want to be in these meetings and I need to feel some type of, I want to be valued, right? Or you got people who say the only way, you either can be for them or you tear them down. And why you gonna tear them down? Because you want to get on top of the perch. So if we don't see leadership as the ability to continually die for the people that you leading, then you gonna always have people who like, man, I want what you got, and I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do to get it. Why? Because people don't see leadership as suffering. They don't see leadership as you gotta go in front. People who lead typically, that's why Jesus talked about there's no greater love than any man has than to lay down his life for a friend, right?
Amen.
And so
you preaching,
but I mean, but that when we see what leadership is, like leaders should be up at night agonizing over a decision that needs to be made. And how am I going to do this? And so I think if we can change the value of leadership, and if you and I can put that out there for the people to see that real leadership is really about service, and we can take away this idea that, you know, you're going to shine if you become a leader. We want to show leaders that suffer and leaders that, because that's real leadership. Amen. Real leadership gets dirty, right? Amen. And lastly, I'll say that I think what's important is that, like the scripture talks about, when it looks at the gifts in the church, how God has put gifts, and religious leaders, I think, miss this a lot of times, man. Like he says, the greater gifts are the ones that we should bestow more honor on, are the ones that are the least beautiful, right? And I always tell people, like, think about this. If you have a headache, it's going to affect you depending on the severity of it. But just for the sake of this example, if you have a headache, you can still kind of make it. If you hit your head, it stings for a second, you can keep going. But what happens when you walk in the dark and you kick your pinky toe? Ooh. What happens then? It affects your whole body. That's right. Right? That's because your feet. One tooth. Bruh. And I'm not saying, because if you don't have a head, your feet don't matter, right? So we're not talking about. Because you need the whole body. 100%. But my thing is we have to put more emphasis on the gifts that we think less of. So instead of the pastor having a church parking spot, the janitor should have one. You know what I mean? That's a good way to look at it. That's kind of, that's the way to keep us humbled and keep us in things in proper perspective. 100%. Now, one of the things that I kind of, one of the things that I was thinking of as you were talking, I was thinking about Carter G. Woodson. Yep. And I forget what book it was. I was reading one of his books. I really used back, especially I used to read a lot of his stuff, but he was talking about the church, and he's talking about how the preacher comes in and fleece the flock, you know, and get a new car, and, you know, he get up and preach and he's gone, you know. But he said that a real leader, when we're talking about leaders, you know, real pastor, he should be sleeping with his people, eating with his people, crying with his people, suffering with his people, fighting with his people, everything right there in the midst of people, and leading them, you know, leading them. Like you said, being out front. Because that's what a leader does. He's on the front lines, right? But today you don't have that. You know, there are pastors today that say that, hey, you know, I'm the shepherd, you the sheep, and sheep beget sheep, so you go out there and get souls. Have you heard that? Of course. But here's what happens. So let me address a couple things. First, what's going on, Chaz? Tom, what's up? Jackie, how you doing? Miss Carol Bowser, David Whipple, yep. Aramate, what's going on? So let me address a few of these issues that have been talked about. When a person comes home, they need to work. That's very true. Jackie says, hi, Bishop and Jason. Hey, Jackie. Jackie. Clark. Oh. And so Ms. Bowser says integrity. That's what she talked about, what leadership is. Davey Whipple says black folk under 40 don't think two things, or they don't think twice about church and leadership. And I wouldn't doubt that. Chaz Hines says that they're gatekeepers. Very true, right? Standing in the gate, man. Yeah, and watchmen. But I think that they, I don't know what the defender. But I don't know what the when you say gatekeeper, what does that mean? How do people view that? Like we see it, depending on the type of leader you are or whatever. So, you know, you might see it as like somebody who protects the sheep like that. But some people view it as somebody who don't want to let anything come in and come out and got to be in control of everything, right? So it depends on the context the person is using gatekeeper. David Whipple says, and we must remember that crab in the barrel mentality as one pulling down, not trying to get out. And I agree with that. What do you like? When you hear crabs in a barrel, well, just so we can, I'm the one that said it. So, like, for me, what I'm talking about is we don't want to see, we pull people down because we want what they have. It's not that anybody's trying to get out. It's not a matter of get in or get out, but it's I want what you have. So we'll do everything we can to tear you down. Because people who are really leading understand the value, like leaders like I'm not intimidated by your success. I want you to be successul, right? Like, and I hope that, why would you be intimidated by me? Like, we're both leaders, but like what, like I don't have any, you don't have anything that I would tear you down for, but So that's what I mean by crabs in a bucket. Crabs that we just want to pull people down. But the reason is because the leadership that we see, and we've created this thing where people have to be, where you got to stand on top of everybody and stand on people's chest and act like you're better than everybody else. And so people will just pull you down to get you out the way. But somebody has to take that mantle. Chaz says nobody should want to be a leader. It sucks. He says George Washington, MLK, Gandhi, none really wanted to be who they became. From my understanding, they had to be convinced. So I think, like, in the world sense, like I understand that. When you look at the biblical model of like how like preachers become, like the scripture talks about, if a man desires the office of an overseer, he desires a good thing, but he qualifies it. But this person must first be of integrity, able to teach, of a sound mind, sober, like all these things that we don't usually check. And so we end up having people who are at the church
who have charisma, charismatic, or pretty good floors,
but they offer no real substance or whatever. So and so I think it's important that we when the idea of leadership, I think if a person does want to be in leadership, and sometimes this is another thing we got to be careful for in the black community. You talked about charisma and stuff. Like sometimes the people who just want to have a black face in leadership that don't care about integrity will put the one who's at the most charismatic and the one who because they just want to get followers and people to come in. They don't care about what decisions this person's going to make. And so we as a community have to like keep each other on guard to say, no, we're not going to accept you.
That's right.
And when leaders that we put in those positions don't serve and don't do the things that like what we collectively would say, and I wonder collectively what everybody feels a leader is. When they don't do those things, we need to get them out of there. So those are the two things that I wanted to talk about. Two things that I wanted to say. And so what I'll do is turn it over to you to lead 3 and 4. And then if you have something for me or you got whatever, certainly feel free to ask.
Yeah, one of the things I put on is holding politicians accountable, whether ally or foe. Because for the most part, we're willing to hold our foes. We're willing to call them out. We're willing to disrupt their meetings and different things like that. But when it's our allies, and of course, when you have allies, you want to work with them. But let me give you a couple examples of what I'm talking about. Like Shirley Weber. That's my politician, right? And what I mean by that is that I love the work that she's doing.
Okay.
I wholeheartedly support it. And I have issues when people say something about it. But people do.
Hey, what's up, Habib and Elsie?
And especially when the Earl McNeil thing was going. You know, I heard some things said about it and things like that. But my attitude is that people have a right, to say whatever they want to say and hold their politicians accountable. This is the way I feel. I'm still support, still be behind her no matter what, and so on. But people have a right to feel what they feel. I didn't go in on them. Just let people do what they want to do. But I think sometimes we align ourselves with someone who might be a friend and everything else, but who's a politician. We let that get in the way. And let me give you another example, which you did it respectfully, because we respect each other and so on. But when I criticized Monica a little bit on Facebook about some of her when she was on the news and when I was feeling as though she really wasn't pushing some things, and then you came in, you're very respectful. But it's like, hey, Monica's my girl, man.
Don't mess with Monica now.
and it was like, hey, man, you got to give a chance, blah, 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 blah. And, I said, okay, I hear what you're saying. You said it respectfully, and I received that, but we were able to engage each other respectfully.
Yes, sir.
With love.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can agree to disagree, or sometimes we can hear each other and say, okay, let's see what happened. You know what I mean? And I just don't see that kind of dialogue. I see today that it's almost like people want to cut your head off if you say something about somebody. That shouldn't be. Right. I give you an example. I don't know if Mika's still watching, but I'll give an example of her because when she did her video, a lot of people got upset, right? And there's some people that say, I don't want nothing to do with it. I'm going to cut her off. And when I was talking to you, what did I tell you? If you remember when we talked about that, I said, hey, let Mika be Mika. She has a voice. She has a right. She's and we shouldn't separate ourselves from her. We should still love her and let her say what she needs to say. That's her. She's being who she is. And we got to let people have that voice and be who they are without we might disagree, but without drawing offense to the point where I don't want to do with you no more. We got to love each other. We still got to work together. We can agree to disagree, you know, on some issues, but there's so many other issues that we need each other to work together, right? And so, but I think that it doesn't matter who it is. We all have a perception of how we view things. You see, I remember I was in this class. It was a psychology class, and the teacher, professor, whoever it was, threw up a picture. And I'm sitting back in the back, and he threw up the picture and asked everybody, what did they see? And folks said, like, 2 or 3 pictures I didn't see. I was like, how did they see that?
What's wrong with these folks?
And then the professor started talking about the picture, because he was saying everything is based on perception, how we perceive things, right? And so sometimes, like I might, if like with Shirley, the way I looked at it, like I might be too close to be objective. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I could be right, but I might be too close on that issue. So I got to let people say what they're going to say without coming in on them and so on and so forth. Real leaders is like a lion.
Keep talking. I'm gonna make sure that the video's still.
And one of the things that we said when we talk about truth, did it freeze?
Yeah, but I think it's frozen on here.
Okay,
what?
No, it's frozen on mine too.
That's weird.
Let's see.
Are y'all able to still see? So it just said you're watching. So are you guys able to still? It looks like it's frozen on mine too. That's weird. No, it's still showing people coming in and out. There we go. Are you guys able to still? All right.
Okay. Yeah,
wow.
The screen froze on us.
People coming in and out. There we go. Are you guys able to?
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was weird.
So
Davey Whipple said no one can agree with Mika until she provides me with my grilled cheese snickerdoodles.
And we need a little little laugh every now and then. You know what I mean? We need a little laugh every now and then. But we see things differently.
Sure.
We still got to love each other. We got to forgive each other. We got to talk to each other with respect. If I'm really angry about something that you've done, I'm gonna call you or talk to you about it. Sometimes we might engage publicly like we do. But we do it respectfully, and understand, because I respect you so much to where that if you say something contrary to what I say, I want to hear what you got to say. Right. Because I'm like, wait a minute, this brother knows what he's talking about. I respect him. And so I've got to listen to that and hear what he's saying and so on, and then respond accordingly.
You know one of the things that I think, though, that for me, I think part of the love and respect that I have for you, I think I would probably not say certain things if I knew that it would
right. I hear what you're saying.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if I ever did say something that would be offensive to you, it would be like, whoa, I didn't realize that, dude. I didn't know. And then we would talk. But
because I don't mean to do that.
Yeah. And so I think the thing for me, especially in our community, as fragile as our community is, and just kind of where everybody's at, I think that it's important for, okay, thanks, Jackie. Yeah, it went out, but it's working out. Thank you. I think what's important is that we're careful about the things that we say and the effects that see, we can't afford to have casualties within our own camp. Right now.
Exactly.
We got to be, so neither one of us and I think it's important. I think that relationships really need to be restored. There's a lot of brokenness. Yeah. There's just a lot going on. And so my prayer always, man, for everybody in our community that's at odds, that we would learn to talk. Mm-hmm. And just real quick, as a quick little side note that's relevant to this is, I had a problem with Gerald Brown. Mm-hmm. We had this meeting your meeting last on the 23rd, I think 19th it was. 19th, yeah. And there was a lot being talked about. Mm-hmm. And then I was hearing somebody had told you somebody had gotten threatened, and it's just all these rumors. Yeah. And so I was like,
well, when we was in that room.
Yeah, man. I've been wanting to tell, but it was like, whoa. I don't want to say who said anything, but
I'm not either.
Right. But my point is, so I called him the next day. Like, brother, what's going on? Like, what happened? Because that's important. Mm-hmm. And I believe that the story that he told, I was like, well, we recorded it, so I started thinking, well, let me I'm gonna stall it out and let me listen to the recording or whatever. I didn't know it had been. I kind of figured Sister Carol had like started recording, but anyway, long story short, I was just like, man, I listened to the recording and what he said was not true.
Exactly.
That brother was lying. Yeah. He was lying bad too, like dude. And so I posted the recording, but I got a chance to talk to him, and I told him personally, like, man, it's not what you doing is not fair, dude. You're not telling the whole story, and that's not. And he was like, well, so and so also said it was bad, and so and so said it was bad, and somebody that wasn't even there was in the room listening to the conversation. I knew that beforehand or whatever, and then they had already formed their opinion about what happened in the meeting, and I was like, that ain't true. And so that's why we posted the video. I thank God that you posted the recording so we could see, but we don't have time for like stuff like that, man. We don't have time for people who are leaders to, in that regard, for this situation, to be reckless and spreading a bunch of rumors and stuff about like how meetings go. We can't afford that.
Right.
And so I just think there's a lot of healing that needs to take place, and especially with some of our newer social justice advocates, man, because we got some real writers. We got some real writers in San Diego, man. And so that's my prayer, man, is just that we would kind of get back to like a place of love, and if we need to do some type of reconciliation work or whatever, because the truth is, any house divided against itself can't stand.
Because I think, at least among our group of a coalition that we have, we pretty much want the same thing. Not all of us want exactly the same thing, but we pretty much want some of the same things, especially when it comes to City San Diego and dealing with City Council. At least my focus, is dealing with police brutality and setting ordinances and rules in place that will eliminate racial profiling, that will stop the way our communities are being policed, so to change that culture within law enforcement. So I think most of us want some of these things because we want them to stop killing us. Yeah. You know what I mean? We stop killing us, stop arresting us and putting us in jail, and bring in the resources that we need, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But so we can disagree to agree. We can agree to disagree, I should say. And the Bible says, how can two walk together except they agree? So even when we disagree, as long as we agree that, okay, we don't see it that way on that, but the bigger picture, we do, have some commonalities.
We don't have to throw everything out.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater.
What was it? D.L. Hughley said, when he was a kid, he said he grew up, man, what happened when the piece of bread had mold on it? You cut that corner off or whatever, you eat the bread.
I know I've done that back in the days, yeah.
Brother Davy Whipple said, the American African does not have, I want to say the thinking they have within the borders of, I don't know exactly what he means by that, so I'm going to wait for him to come back and clarify what he means. Doesn't have, okay. That brother uses a lot of. You got to read Brother Davies' stuff a few times. He'd be like, oh, that's ingenious that he thought to write something that way. But you got me stumped there, brother. Normally I can decode what you're saying, but I can't on that one. So sorry. Hey, what's up, Miss Laster? How you? Okay, it means exactly what you said before you said it. Black folks don't have time for. Oh, okay. Oh, got you. No time. Don't have time thinking they have time. It means exactly what you said before you said it. Black folks don't have time for various levels of low vibration drama. For black folks in San Diego have no time. Okay? So, did you... thank you. I don't know. I don't know what... He used the X in there, and that is throwing me off. So, so anyway, that makes sense, though. So we need to...
but the point is that...
Close that one off and then that loop.
As far as with me, I have no permanent allies or permanent foes, enemies. That's one of the organizing sayings.
I don't have any permanent allies and no permanent foes.
That's right. Wow. And when it comes to what I believe and what I stand on and what I stand for, anybody violate those principles, I'm going to say something. That's just the way I am. Yeah. Now, I'm a team player, so like if you or Meek or whoever, somebody come to me and say, hey, just keep it on. Can you just keep it on the low right now? Don't say nothing. Give us a chance to do this. Oh, okay, I'm a team player. I don't have to say nothing. But I'm letting you know I don't like it. I can do that too. I am a team player if we communicate and work right. But folks will never have to doubt about where I stand. on something, and I'm not going to be somebody's friend just to be their friend. And especially in this day and time, if you say I'm not a progressive, but if you say you're a progressive, then let's see your progressive actions. Let's see you move to action. And because that's one of the conversations we were having is that, I feel that people today, when we talk about reform and transforming and so on, you can't sit around and wait for the enemy to regroup and come back and knock down what you're trying to build. You got to move fast. Right. You got to catch them while they sleep in the camp. You know what I mean? And slaughter them. Now, metaphorically, don't go around talking about said, because these folks today, man, be interpreting things the way they want to interpret it, even though you're speaking with metaphors and figurative speech. Sometimes people take it literally and think you're talking about slaughtering somebody. Yeah. Oh, you want to? No.
Slaughter the ideas.
Yeah.
The thing, slaughter whatever a person. I mean, people can.
That movement against what we're trying to do. Stop it.
People know that. No, yeah. I agree. I think that makes sense. I think one of the things I think though, man, that's important is that I think we also have to acknowledge and evaluate our deficiencies.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like, it don't matter how much you want or desire to do a particular thing, right? If you don't have the ability to do those things, and I think that's what hurts, and I think we abdicate our responsibility to other people that can, so a person's super, flamboyant, and they talk a lot and very, just have a super charismatic, and so we abdicate our responsibility for personal leadership and the way we lead in our home to give it to somebody else, and then right. we get mad when they abuse what we've given them. And my thing is, I think we have to be very reflective of ourselves. Right. Like, where are we at? We have to evaluate our motives. And for me, I found the more, and as a Christian, the more that I try to adopt character that belongs to Jesus, of serving and of being gentle, but also being, very watching. We got to be. It tells us to be circumspect, and that's really my motto. You know what I mean? That's the way that I like it. And so, and even in there, I'm just really sort of learning in that particular thing, because I just now sort of started realizing that, hey, there are some people that probably listen to the stuff that I say, and a lot of it is a position that I have on my job, and there's a lot of those things. People see me around, and people have said certain things that they want me to do certain stuff, run for certain things, and it's I don't really. I want to make sure that I'm good, but before I do anything outside, I want to make sure my house is right, bro. Amen. Right? Amen. They always say, and I learned from an old preacher back in the day that if you ever want to see if a pastor's lying, just look at his wife while he's preaching. And if his wife is yeah, right. And so I want to make sure that, man, after I've done everything in the street, that, you know what I'm saying? That my wife don't want to go and my daughters ain't trying to leave. You know what I mean? So I just want to make sure that that's good. So anyway, just that we need to, I think it's important.
That's where leadership begins.
That we gotta make sure, I just think it's important that we need to evaluate and criticize our own, deficiencies. That's important. So,
Exactly.
Ms. Lasser says, Bishop, you move in the spirit realm while others move in the physical, and they have no relationship with God to discern the difference. Ooh.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you.
Ooh. So, yeah, and now y'all don't even deserve no. That's real.
Well said.
Davey Whipple says, Black folks.
Hold
on, I got it now.
Dave, we got to get the decoder out.
Yeah, that brother said the X is time. Watch me decode this one. Watch this, brother. Check me out, Davey. Watch your boy. Black folks in San Diego do not have the numbers and are the political savvy and are too politically savvy, I would imagine, to battle the dominant society in real time. The numbers and are the okay. And it's imperative to fully comprehend that the twos and fews are the ones whom get things done. Okay? See how the brother be coding stuff in there, man? You got to be on your toes when you mess with Davey. Y'all asking for one big arse healing circle. Ha! No. Our San Diego version of Hands Across America and presented as Hands Across Southeast. Now he's clowning. Okay, check this out. So, I'm going to heart that one and not laugh because it's actually a great comment. But I think, part of what needs to happen is that, my circle is not everybody in San Diego, right? So if I deal with the people that I deal with in my neighborhood, in my circle, and make sure that we're good, and then it challenge them to do the same thing. There are certain people and probably certain demographics, and I think that even those healing circles are actually really good. If you, I mean, you can't have no 10,000 person healing circle, but I think there are times to have certain ones. I don't know how that works. That's not really my specialty, right? Which is another problem. People who really don't have a specialty in something just try to lead it, and then folks will put you in a position just so they can check a box, and you'll be out there doing more damage. So I don't know. So I would leave it up to like people like Sister Laster, who that's what she does. That's what she. She does that type of stuff. She, like, part of her ministry and her job is reconciliation. So I think we need to go to people like her to be able to say, hey, Sister Laster, we want you to lead a particular thing or take a particular thing on, right? So we got people in the community that do that healing work, and we need to lean on them to be able to do it.
But the first part of that, you know, what Tennessee is saying is black folks in San Diego do not have the numbers and are, and I guess the political savvy to battle the dominant society in real time. And I think that's one of the things that people have to be led in when we talk about leadership and seen as an example and taught in, as far as how to be politically astute and how, because I've seen things that black folks have done, we have done in this city in reframing certain narratives. You know what I mean? You know, when you deal with the gang issue and things like that, there's certain narratives that we've reframed the way people try to frame things and so on. You know, it's kind of like, I remember one time I was on, when there were some shootings, I was on a news station, and they were saying gang shootings, you know, because that's what they always, when they type gang shootings, black people, things like that, and black people are violent. And so I reframed the narrative and said, no, we don't say gang violence, individual violence. You know, it's not gang violence, it's what an individual chose
so
to
reframing
do.
the narrative.
Yeah, reframing the narrative. Okay. And my thing is, I think, you know, he's right in the sense of this being savvy enough, you know, maybe not as a group, but but those who are and who out front should have enough, be savvy enough and politically astute enough to know how to, and this is what I always tell people is like, if what you're saying, if you're only trying to make an appeal to other black folks in the city of San Diego, then it's not going to get too far because we're small in numbers, 6% of the people. You got to really cross those lines and frame a narrative to where that fair-minded people, wherever they may be, will hear and see that and fall for it. Or what you're saying, the narrative that you're trying to frame. Because you're trying, when you start a movement or when you're trying to change systems and change things, you're going to need a masses of people to get behind it. And the only way that's going to happen, you have to be able to speak in language that they understand and that they're going to get with in the marketplace, in terms of society, of how they view things and their perception of things, to get them to see it from a perspective that what we frame it as and what's happening to us is unfair. Because most people, I'm not saying all people, but most people are fair-minded in the sense that, you know, they know how to look at something and see and say, that's not fair, or that's not right, or that's unjust, and so on. And so sometimes we tend to miss that. And I think there are times when we did get it right and we were able to frame certain things a certain way and to get what we want and so on, statewide, citywide, countywide, and so on, with some of the fights I've been in and some of the movements I've been a part of as far as trying to change systems and change policies and get people to see things certain way, even being on a panel discussion, you know, because, you know, my area is always dealing with gangs and things like that. And one of the things, remember a few years ago, they were trying to tie sex trafficking to gangs, and our narrative that we were framing out there, we was going to all these different panels and meetings that they're talking about sex trafficking or human trafficking and letting them know that, you know, gangs, when you talk about gangs and sex trafficking are two separate things. And you need to separate the two. It's about individuals that are involved in that. And every race, every person, all over is involved in. Even when Jamie Gates them did that study, we challenged them on it. And he even said that, you know, they kind of like the DA off and all them and the police department kind of framed the narrative the way that he really didn't like, because that wasn't why he did the study. Okay. And so on. And so you can challenge it and you can do it. And so on. But he is right. You know, we have to, people got to quit, you know, how can I put this? Because I don't want to offend people in what I say. But people have to stop, get educated. Let me just put that. Get educated and learn how to speak in a way that's going to not only reach the people that you're around, but people that you're not around. because that's what you want to do. That's what you're trying to do. And a lot of times people don't understand it when you're trying to frame narrative, not just to impress your small group of people, but you're trying to reach the community at large.
Well, I was talking to somebody
or the city at large.
No, I get it. I was talking to somebody the other day that was like, I don't think the black community realizes how powerful we are, even though it's a smaller number.
Yeah.
So I think I think a lot of it again is, and this is what Davey was talking about. Twos and fews get stuff done, that's for sure. But I think the political savviness, and part of being savvy is having an understanding. There's no way you can be politically savvy if you don't understand. You have to understand the way the system works, and then how people play within that system, and then the influence that certain people have. So I think all too often we believe that. That's why I think it's important we're not just a community of gangs. We're not just
right.
I was talking to somebody the other day in the same person. I don't want to mention their name, but the same person. We're talking about how, like, if you look all over society, the people that we revere, or not even that we revere, sorry, the people that are listed as those that like represent us are the people who are the violent ones, the people who are right. But if we were to list like all the doctors and lawyers, just all the professionals and educated folks that we have in San Diego, a large majority of the people that are here, I would imagine, are not like gang members and all that. Like, we have a lot of educators and people who are highly productive.
And that's a narrative, right, that you try to frame, because what most people think whenever they're shooting something happen, I read the comments on whether 7 or 10K your side, whatever. They're, probably was a thug gang member, he deserved to get shot, and things like that. And people always try to say that, right? And the key that when in trying to frame this narrative, hey, there's only in our community, there's only a small percentage of people who are committing crimes and doing the violent acts. Most people are law-abiding citizens, work and doing the right thing and want a safe community just like everyone else.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sister Lasser says, Jason, we have to be direct in living out what we preach and believe, even if the mass disagrees. I 100% agree with that. No, it's real.
Yes,
Sister Tammy Jackson says, we must focus on what matters and not take things personal because of misunderstanding, misdirected anger, individual interpretations, and perceptions. That's good.
Amen.
Stick to the facts, the mission, and be strategic, diplomatic, and collaborating and setting goals. It's about leveraging power, making better change for the common good.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus.
So better move to
good.
the next issue, right?
Real quick, let me just address these questions real quick, and then we'll definitely move on.
Okay.
Bishop, that won't happen until accountability happens, and that we probably...
I preached on accountability yesterday.
Yeah, you did. Watch that sermon right there. The hate you give. One movement. We can be widespread in our agendas, and the messages gets lost. Very true. We got to be focused, because if not, and that's part of what they do, right? Yeah. Boom! This happens, and now everybody's over here tripping, right? So we got to stay focused. Yes, in the face, coming to America, boys. That's for you, Bishop. That's funny.
Okay.
As I posted before, black women also always become the enemy to a traumatized, broken, and mentally unstable black man's ego. Oh, she just posted this the other day. Very good. Black men will always be the target of an emotionally charged and damaged heart of a traumatized, non-trusting black woman. Y'all so woke and didn't peep the cycle, and when it's attempted to be interrupted, the black man's ego and the black woman's lack of trust continues to keep us in the same conversations years later. Very true. We run from real solutions because too many people worried about name recognition. Or someone who is just as traumatized validates the mess. Let's stop with hood history and ghetto glory and get our communities mentally healthy and healed. That's another amen period. Ooh, that's good. Most people didn't understand this. No, it's understandable. If you didn't understand that, there's something wrong with you. So we understood that, Sister Laster. Thank you for that.
Somebody, it was an author years ago from Ebony, I forget her name. She quoted in Ebony, but she said, in so many words, one of the if you want to find one of the worst things you can do is get a black man and a black woman in a room together, because we got issues,
Yeah, well, I mean,
issues, and
hey, but and that's a whole nother conversation, so we won't get lost in that. And we got a couple minutes left. We got 10 minutes left, so eight minutes left, because we want to try to be on time. We're trying to respect the time, but I also want to address all the questions. So what about your last one? Is very good. Last one, last question, or last point.
The San Diego Union Tribune did a story about crime.
And the link's in the comments, you guys.
Yeah. They did a story on crime in San Diego, because violent crimes really in San Diego, because the shout in the city among our politicians and the police has been San Diego is the safest city in America. And many times when I hear that, I just cringe because I know what we're dealing with in our communities. You know what I mean? And we need help. We need resources. We need our community, for them to quit marginalizing our community, stereotyping our community, underserving our community. All these various different things, from fragmented system, from school to community to churches, various community organizations. All these different things are fragmented in our community, and we know that a lot of this is based on things that stem from way back from slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration, over policing our community, and the whole bit. But one of the things on this report, because I had talked with one of the reporters who was doing the story, and the struggle that she was finding, and she I think in one of her interviews she mentioned Monica, but she had told me too that she was trying to reach out to them, but they didn't want to comment. I was like, well, yeah, I know they don't want to make the same mistake that Murder Cole made and say something that the community's not going to like, and then there'd be an uproar, on that end from that perspective. But then it had me to start thinking. It's like, it's almost as though, from one perspective, we want to reframe the narrative that our community is no more violent than any other community. But when violence happens other places, they get what they need. But when violence happens in our community, we don't get what I need.
There's a shooting at a school somewhere, and counselors and all that come.
Exactly.
There's a shooting here, and people get suspended.
Exactly. And so we don't get what we need. So we have to address that. But in addressing that, sometimes you have to address the crime. But sometimes when you address crime, because as people come, especially black people, that gives some folks, maybe a lot, a reason to want to criminalize the community. Nothing but a bunch of dangerous thugs and gang members and pimps and all those type of things, which we know in our community that we don't have a lot of that, right? We have some of it, but we don't have a lot of it. But we do have issues that need to be addressed. And how do we address these issues without criminalizing our community, right? And so I talked to the reporter for about an hour or 2 hours, but she only put a little quote in there because they really wanted to talk to people in the community, which I think was the best thing to do. But I found it interesting, I should say, that some politicians didn't want to say anything, which it could have been a grand opportunity to demonstrate and show, because when you say San Diego is a safe city, they're looking at that like, well, y'all don't need nothing. Y'all don't need no help. Let's put these tax dollars somewhere else when we all pay tax dollars, right? And we don't get the help and the support that we need in our communities, because other places are going to get it. So that's kind of what I want to address on that. What do you think about that? How do we address issues in our community? Because remember when there was those shootings, and you came, we did in front of the fire department. You got some heat with that. One of the things the reporter was asking me, is, well, what is the problem? Because I was like, you got to address the underlying problem. It's not you're looking at violence, but you're not looking at the underlying issues. You're not looking at poverty. You're not looking at trauma. You're not looking at how the community is being underserved. You're not looking at all these other variables that creates the climate that we have, and that's what I would like to see happen. But we have to have the conversation. We have to address these issues, and sometimes people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. And I don't know how you're going to you can do it another way of addressing resources, but just like the young man that got killed today. You could imagine all the people that's traumatized by that knew him, right? But in a community where a person is just an average citizen, dies or gets shot or get killed, at least 200 people have been traumatized behind that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And
vicarious trauma.
Exactly. And
Tasha always talks about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're talking about a traumatized community, right? And I'm kind of not so much against, but I get tired of hearing trauma-informed care. Because you want to talk about trauma-informed care so those people can get paid and come in and teach on trauma, but nobody's doing anything to prevent the trauma or treat the traumatized person. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where we have a problem. Everything becomes about money and becomes about, for that individual to make money, or becomes about, holding a position or prestige or whatever it is, versus really getting to the nitty-gritty and saying, we got a problem. And I like what the mayor said in D.C. back in the Well,
I rebuke you.
One thing I was taught coming up is truth, no matter where it is
all
and who it comes from. So even if the mayor of City of San Diego said it, if it's truth, it's true. But in DC, this years ago, I forget the lady name, woman. She was a mayor, but she was talking about our children. She said, if you're on your way to trouble, we'll do everything we can to prevent you from getting in trouble. If you're already in trouble, we'll do everything we can to get you out of trouble. But if you are the trouble, then we're going to do whatever we can to protect our community. And that's kind of the way I look at things, when it comes to addressing issues in our community. And, because I engage the high risk, those who are really involved and really doing it and so on, I see it a lot. So for me, that small percentage, that's 100% for me because that's what I deal with. That's what I see, where a lot of people don't really see that. Okay. So I see what is needed and what the problem is. Okay. But a lot of people don't see it from my angle, my vantage point, because they're not doing the work that I do and dealing with the people that I deal with and so on. And so I know we need help. We need resources in our community, right?
I agree.
And so I take the risk of addressing it because it needs to be addressed.
So I totally agree. I think that's what I shared about at the meeting that you had the other day on the 19th. Is that why don't we use the same philosophy in La Jolla that is used in Southeast?
Thank you.
If the answer is more police, then why don't you do that? Why don't you to the colleges, some of these universities that got drug problems and all type of stuff? Why don't we send more police to those, right? And so. And I think here's the other thing, and then I think for me, we could end on this. In my opinion, is I think what I don't want to happen when we get certain leaders, and especially black leaders in office, what I don't want us to do is we're very critical about them not standing up and saying stuff, right? But my thing is, where's the but the community needs to stand up. And these people but we get used to that's what we talked about earlier. We have this mentality. And I think a lot of that comes from our religious order, the way that we've ordered these churches in the community. People see one person that's supposed to be the biggest.
That's not it.
Right. And so my thing is no. The council member, Monica Montgomery, can only do so much.
Right.
And I'm not even making excuses. Right. It don't matter. You can only do so much.
That's right.
Tasha can only do so much.
That's
Mika and Sister Laster and these other community leaders can only do so much. We have got to accept responsibility for some of the action that needs to happen. We need to come together and do our part. Like I told Tasha, I can't show up to a lot of the press conferences and stuff like that because it's during work days. But what I do is I donate. I'll give money and stuff. I'll make sure that blah blah blah. There's ways that we can do certain things. So we got to get involved. We can't keep I told somebody who believes something different than me. Right? Somebody came to my door and was trying to share their faith with me. And so I told him, I don't agree with what you believe and I don't, whatever. But let me tell you something, sir. It was a guy in the I think it was a guy this time. I've said it a couple of times, but I said, let me tell you, the way that you share your faith is 100 times better than the way I don't. So we need to it is important. You can only do what you can do, and whatever you're doing is better than what I'm not doing. You only been to one council meeting this year. How many you been to?
Exactly.
So I'm doing way better than you, right? And I'm not saying everybody got to do it, but what I'm saying is we got to come together and accept those responsibilities and take each other by the hand. And we have to own that part of our story.
So media one.
Sister Lasser says they handicap our ability to play on the same playing field with others because this would mean looking into funding that is due to us but being dispersed in other areas. There's no question. We got to call for that. We got to go to the meetings and show up. And I agree. You're 100% right, Sister Lasser. That's what they do. And so we got to show up. The council member, Monica Montgomery, has meetings that you can set up with her 20-minute meetings to come and talk about that stuff. And let's go talk about it. Find out what we got to do. Get some of the game. I agree. She says, Bishop, we have to connect the broken chain so real wraparound services happen.
Right.
Tasha is the first person I ever heard to talk about wraparound services. And so, and you know what? And I'll hold the forum, Bishop, let's do it. So Sister Lasser says she'll hold the forum. So get the thing started. That's
Amen.
cool. We can do that. And my assumption is we're going to need more than one. You know what I'm saying? But get that thing started, which leads to the last question. How do I be a guest on the show? So, the thing is, and like, we just like started doing it. And like, just, I don't know, like we never like really thought about it. I mean, we thought about having other people on the show, but we just we do need to start bringing people on and hearing what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But how to do that? It's enough just to get us to get our own thoughts together. You know what I'm saying? So we need to talk about how
do maybe interview.
We got to start.
One of us step aside and somebody sit down.
Or we can, and this is the internet, brother. We can pull people in.
Yeah.
Just real quick, so people can. Yeah. So we're just trying to get our game together.
Yeah, we got to get more equipment and get our technology. We're whatever what you call it.
We are not tech savvy. That's the only thing.
We're the opposite.
Yeah, amen. So there's a lot of stuff we got to do to get better at it. But so man, as usual, man, and I forgot to tell you in the beginning, man, because I was still kind of tripping off, brother Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah.
Kind of threw me off right there, man. Normally we start off the show.
Can you imagine all the people traumatized behind it just because they probably didn't even know him, but felt like they know him because they listened to his music and everything else?
I know him vicariously through a friend of mine that knows him really well. That grew up in the 60s with him and all that, and like knows him personally. Like that's his boy. Had a chance to go meet the brother. My friend asked me a couple times when he was in Dago, man, come with me, but I just didn't have time. So obviously I regret it now. I believe
that's Tasha's community in the Road 60s over there.
So we just want to think.
That's rough because I remember back in my days, from San Diego. Way down here, my banging days, we heard about 60s.
But you think about, like you said, something happens in San Diego, and for one person, 200 people.
Viva Lassa's from LA.
We'll figure it out. We'll ask. But yeah, you're right. So let's end because we're over time now. But
yeah, we say we'll do 1 hour.
Sister Lassa says you guys need to come to my studio and record and go live.
Let's do
it. She said I have the equipment. That's good. And then
so we'll come through and check her out.
Yeah. Sister Tammy says, y'all doing great. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Miss Jackson and my brother Ruben, man. Y'all, man, I've known this brother, man, for so long. Man, this brother used to drive a hearse. This dude was like so cool when I first met him. His name is Ruben. And he does, Ruben does, oh my goodness, brother, it just escaped my mind. A community organization. Oh my, Love Thy Neighbor. Love Thy Neighbor is what he does.
Oh yeah. I came in and spoke one time at one of his events a couple of years ago.
So we want to, and one of the things we want to do too is just promote some of the community resources. Habib Prince, he might not be on here anymore, but Habib does some like really good stuff. So we're going to build this thing up to where we can start promoting service. What's up, Pastor Sandoval? So we want
the word.
We want to do that. We want to hear from the community and hear the things that the community wants to talk about and hear about. So if you guys would, spread the word, critique us, send us messages, let us know what you think we should do or say or whatever. We're not trying to do anything. We just want to, we just felt like it was important. And the brother called me 5 weeks ago, like, we got to do our show right now. I don't know if he was mad about something. So I was like, come on over right now.
Well, because we had been talking about it, and then I was like, man, okay, when we going to do this, man?
Yeah. And Sister Bowser says you guys are doing, she says, I agree. Good job and great conversation.
Thank you.
We appreciate that so much, Miss Bowser. Thank you. Well, brother, as I always say, I didn't get to say in the beginning, but I always appreciate being able to sit next to you, to be able to be in your presence. You are a great man. The Bible says a man's gifts will make a place for him and bring him before great men, and it's true. You are a great man.
And I'm before a great man.
Hey, look, for real, man, really, it's important, man. I just want to, every time we talk,
man.
I always want to encourage you, man, and just tell you how proud I am to be like your friend and your brother. I always tell people I don't have friends. I got acquaintances and family. So you family, man. You my big bro. You know what I mean? And so I appreciate you. I appreciate Sister Carol and just y'all's family and the person that you are. I always want to try to publicly say that, man. I just appreciate the soldier that you are, man. You mean a lot to me and to this community, brother. And so I just want to tell you that. Thank you for being willing to spend some time.
You too, man. Really appreciate you. And like I told you from the beginning, have highest respect for when you say something, I'm listening. So what did he say?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in trouble now.
No, man.
He's the big gun around here.
We gonna come together, man.
But that's how much I respect. Because some people are like, I don't care what they say.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I think we've had a chance to see each other. This is what I hope our other leaders in the community can get a chance to really. We need to send some of them away to spend some time with it, because that's where we really got to know each other was in Philadelphia, man. We had to share a room, and so. But anyway, man. So everybody that stood around and stuck in, headed. Wait. To everybody that stuck in there, not stood head gid. Everybody that stuck in there with us, thank you.
You better than me. I say a lot of stuff backwards.
Man, I'm terrible when it comes to that. But we just appreciate y'all. Thank you for spending your
time. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Share the video. And we love you all. Have a super good week. Know that we'll be praying for you. We do pray for the community on a regular basis.
Amen.
And we look forward to seeing you all again next week if it's God's will. All right?
Amen. God bless you.
Take care.